Once again, welcome to our channel, PNP Project Eskuwela. We will be discussing the Republic Act 6713, also known as Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, to uphold the time-honored principle of public office being a public trust, granting incentives and rewards for exemplary service, enumerating prohibited acts and transactions, and providing penalties for violations thereof, and other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. Section 1. Title: This Act shall be known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. Section 2. Declaration of Policy. It is the policy of the state to promote a high standard of ethics in public service. Public officials and employees shall at all times be accountable to the people and shall discharge their duties with utmost responsibility, integrity, competence, and loyalty, act with patriotism and justice, lead modest lives, and uphold public interest over personal interest. Section 3. Definition of terms. As used in this Act, the term A. Government. Government includes the national government, the local governments, and all other instrumentalities, agencies or branches of the Republic Act of the Philippines, including government-owned or controlled corporations and their subsidiaries. Public officials includes elective and appointed officials and employees, permanent or temporary, whether in the career or non-career service, including military and police personnel, whether or not they receive compensation, regardless of amount. Gift refers to a thing or a right disposed of gratuitously, or any act of liberality in favor or another who accepts it. Receiving any gift includes the act of accepting directly or indirectly a gift from a person other than a member of his family or relative. As defined in this Act, even on the occasion of a family celebration or national festivity like Christmas, if the value of the gift is neither nominal or insignificant, or the gift is given in anticipation of or in exchange for a favor. Loans covers both simple loan in kumadatom as well as guarantees, financing arrangement, or accommodations intended to ensure its approval. Substantial stakeholders means any person who owns directly or indirectly share of stock sufficient to elect a director of a corporation. This term shall also apply to the parties to a voting trust. Family. Family of public officials or employees means their spouses and unmarried children under 18 years of age. Person include natural and juridical persons, unless the context indicates otherwise. Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest arises when a public official or employee is a member of a board, an officer, or a substantial stockholder of a private corporation or owner, or has a substantial interest in a business, and the interest of such corporation or business or his rights or duties therein may be opposed to or affected by the faithful performance of official duty. Divestment is the transfer of title or disposal of interest and property by voluntarily, completely, and actually depriving or disposing oneself of his right or title to in favor of a person or persons other than his spouse and relatives. Relatives refers to any and all persons related to a public official or employee within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity or affinity, including bilas, enso, and balae. Section 4. Norms of conduct of public officials and employees. Take note that every public official and employee shall observe the following standards of personal conduct and discharge and execution of official duties. Commitment to public interest. Public officials and employees shall always uphold the public interest over and above personal interest. All government resources and powers of their respective offices must be employed and used efficiently, effectively, honestly, and economically, particularly to avoid wastage in public funds and revenues. Professionalism. Public officials and employees shall perform and discharge their duties with the highest degree of excellence, professionalism, intelligence, and skill. Take note that they shall enter public service with utmost devotion and dedication to duty. They shall endeavor to encourage wrong perception of the rules as dispensers or peddlers of undue patronage. Justness and sincerity. Public officials and employees shall remain true to the people at all times. They must act with justness and sincerity and shall not discriminate against anyone, especially the poor and underprivileged. They shall at all times respect the rights of others and shall refrain from drawing acts contrary to law, good morals, good customs, public policy, public order, public safety, and public interest. They shall not dispense or extend undue favors on account of their office to their relatives, whether by consanguinity or affinity, except with respect to appointments of such relatives to positions considered strictly confidential as a member of their personal staff whose terms are coterminous with theirs. Political neutrality. Public officials and employees shall provide service to everyone without unfair discrimination and regardless of party affiliation or preference. Responsiveness to the public. Public officials and employees shall extend prompt, courteous, and adequate service to the public, unless otherwise provided by law or when required by the public interest. Public officials and employees shall provide information on their policies and procedures in clear and understandable language, ensure openness of information, public consultants and hearings whenever appropriate, encourage suggestions, simplify and systematize policy, rules and procedures, avoid red tape, and develop an understanding and appreciation of the socio-economic conditions prevailing in the country, especially in the depressed rural and urban areas. Nationalism and Patriotism. Public officials and employees shall at all times be loyal to the Republic and to the Filipino people. Take note that promote the use of locally produced goods, resources, and technology, and encourage appreciation and pride of countries and people. They shall endeavor to maintain and defend Philippine sovereignty against foreign intrusion. Commitment to democracy. Public officials and employees shall commit themselves to the democratic way of life and values. Take note that maintain the principle of public accountability and manifest by deeds and supremacy of civilian authority over the military. They shall at all times uphold the Constitution and put loyalty to country above loyalty to person or party. Simple living. Public officials and employees shall lead modest lives appropriate to their positions and income. They shall not indulge in extravagant or ostentatious display of wealth in any form. Section 5. Duties of public officials and employees. Take note that in the performance of their duties, all public officials and employees are under obligation to A. Act promptly on letters and requests. All public officials and employees shall within 15 working days from receipt thereof respond to letters, telegrams, or other means of communications sent by the public. The reply must contain the action taken on the request. B. Submit annual performance reports. Take note that all heads or other responsible officers of offices and agencies of the government owned and controlled corporation shall within 45 working days from the end of the year render a performance report of the agency or office or corporation concerned. Such report shall be open and available to the public within regular hours or regular office hours. Process documents and papers expeditiously. All official papers and documents must be processed and completed within a reasonable time from the preparation thereof and must contain, as far as practicable, but not more than 3 signatories therein. In the absence of duly authorized signatories, the official next in rank or officer in charge shall sign for it and in their behalf. Act immediately on the public personal transactions. All public officials and employees must attend to anyone who wants to avail himself of the services of their offices and must at all times act promptly and expeditiously. Make documents accessible to public. All public documents must be made accessible to and readily available for inspection by the public within reasonable working hours. Section 6. System of incentives and rewards. A A system of annual incentives and rewards is hereby established in order to motivate and inspire public servants to uphold the higher standards of ethics. So, for this purpose, a committee on awards to outstanding public officials and employees is hereby created, composed of the following: the Ombudsman and Chairman of Civil Service Commission as Chairman and Chairman of the Commission on Audit, and 2 government employees to be appointed by the President as members. Section 7. Prohibited acts and transactions. Financial and material interest. Take note that public officials and employees shall not directly or indirectly have any financial or material interest in any transaction requiring the approval of their office. Outside employment and other activities related thereto, public officials and employees during their incumbency shall not own, control, manage, or accept employment as officer, employee, consultant, counsel, broker, agent, trustee, or nominee in any private enterprise, regulated, supervised, or licensed by their office unless expressly allowed by law. Engage in private practice of their profession unless authorized by the Constitution or law, provided that such practice will not conflict or tend to conflict with their official functions, or recommend any person to any position in a private enterprise which has a regular or pending official transaction with their office. So, disclosure and misuse of confidential information. Public officials and employees shall not use or divulge confidential or classified information officially known to them by reason of their office and not made available to the public, either to further their private interest or give undue advantage to anyone, and to prejudice the public interest. Solicitation or acceptance of gifts. Take note that public officials and employees shall not solicit or accept directly or indirectly any gift, gratuity, favor, entertainment, loan, or anything of monetary value from any person in the course of their official duties in connection with any operation being regulated by or any transaction which may be affected by the functions of their office. Section 8. Statement and disclosure. The public officials and employees have an obligation to accomplish and submit declarations under oath of, and public has the right to know, their assets, liabilities, network, and financial and business interests, including those of their spouses and of unmarried children under 18 years of age living in their household. So, it is very important to submit the statement of assets and liabilities and financial disclosure. All public officials and employees, and except those who serve in honorary capacity, laborers and casual or temporary workers, shall file under oath their statement of assets and liabilities, or the SALN, and net worth, and a disclosure of business interest and financial connection, and those of their spouses and unmarried children under 18 years of age living in their household. And the disclosure, identification in disclosure of relatives. It shall be the duty of every public official and employee to identify and disclose to the best of his knowledge and information his relatives in the government in the form, manner, and frequency prescribed by the Civil Service Commission. Accessibility of documents. Any and all statements filed under this Act shall be made available for inspection of reasonable hours. Prohibited acts. It shall be unlawful for any person to obtain or use any statement filed under this Act for any purpose contrary to morals or public policy, or any commercial purpose other than by news and communications media for dissemination to the general public. Section 9. Divestment. Public officials and employees shall avoid conflict of interest at all times. When a conflict of interest arises, he shall resign from his position in any private business enterprise within 30 days from his assumption of office, and or divest himself of his shareholdings or interest within 60 days from such assumption. Section 10. Review and compliance procedure. Under this, the designated committee of both houses and Congress shall establish procedure for the review of statement to determine whether said statement have been submitted on time, are complete, and are in proper form. Section 11. Penalties. Any public official or employee, regardless of whether or not he hold office or employment in a casual, temporary, holdover, permanent, or regular capacity, committing any violation of this Act shall be punished with a fine not exceeding the equivalent of 6 months' salary, or suspension not exceeding 1 year, or removal depending on the gravity of the offense, after due notice and hearing by the appropriate body or agency. If the violation is punishable by a heavier penalty under another law, he shall be prosecuted under the latter statute. So violation of Section 7, 8, or 9 of this Act shall be punishable with imprisonment not exceeding 5 years, or a fine not exceeding 5,000 pesos, or both, or in the discretion of the court of competent jurisdiction, disqualification to hold public office. Section 12. Promulgation of rules and regulations, administration and enforcement of this Act. The Civil Service Commission shall have the primary responsibility for the administration and enforcement of this Act. Section 13. The provisions for more stringent standards. Nothing in this Act shall be construed to derogate from any law or any regulation prescribed by any body or agency which provide for more stringent standard for its official and employee. Section 14. The appropriations. The sum necessary for the effective implementation of this Act shall be taken from the appropriations of the Civil Service Commission. Thereafter, such sum as may be needed for its continued implementation shall be included and the Annual General Appropriations Act. Section 15, the severability clause. If any provision of this act or the application of such provision, any person or circumstance is declared invalid, the remainder of the act or the application of such provision to other persons or circumstances shall not be affected by such declaration. Section 16, the repealing clause. Take note that all laws, decrees, and orders or parts thereof and consistent herewith are deemed repealed or modified accordingly, unless the same provide for a heavier penalty. Section 17, effectivity. This act shall take effect after 30 days following the completion of its publication in Official Gazette or in 2 national newspapers of general circulations. Approved February 20, 1989. That's all for today for our Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. Thank you. Keep safe, everyone.